From Charles Oliveira's comeback after his championship loss to everything that's at stake for both fighters at UFC 289, these are Pro Fighters' predictions for Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush and who will come out victorious. Seeing what the rest of the fight card looks like, this appears to be the most exciting fight of the event. A major reason for all the hype towards it is obviously because this is Do Bronx's first appearance after he lost to the current lightweight division champion. It was crazy to see because Charles had been champion all the way since 2021, until Makhachev challenged him for the title. The fight was going pretty evenly. Then, all of a sudden, Islam caught Charles in an arm triangle choke and he tapped out. For Oliveira's fans, this was a devastating sight to see, especially because he's a submission specialist. For someone who'd been riding the high of leading the division, losing at his own game can completely wreck a fighter's confidence. So now, his fans just had to sit back and see how the former champ was going to deal with such a major loss. Then, it got announced that Oliveira wanted to fight again after 7 UFC events had passed. And to UFC fans' excitement, his opponent was more than a worthy fighter. Everyone knew that as soon as Do Bronx was going to fight Benny, that if he pulls this off, it's going to be exactly the comeback he needs to get his pace back in the division. As it is right now, Charles needs a win, and he needs it from someone strong enough to prepare him for the title shot. For sure though, there's no one out there better than Dariush who can give Oliveira the challenge he needs right now. But with the Iranian fighter's current momentum of an 8-fight winning streak, the former champion might just get steamrolled. With Oliveira's fame, the mainstream fans think that this is light work for the Brazilian. But avid fans know how big of a threat Dariush really is, because Beneil just can't seem to lose in any of his fights recently. I mean, the guy hasn't lost since 2018. So he's been dominating the octagon for almost half a decade now. And Charles, on the other hand, just lost a match in 2022. The math doesn't really favor Oliveira, and apparently neither do the fighters. Mateusz Gamrot, who just lost to Benny on UFC 280, thinks that Do Bronx is going to share the same fate as him. Gamrot's statement is pretty believable because he's speaking from experience. He knows firsthand how destructive Beneil's striking is, and also just how dominant his ground game can get. Apparently, he thinks that the Iranian Ultimate Fighter is an absolute monster, and his streak is going to claim its 9th victim with Oliveira. He's not wrong in thinking that too, because in many people's eyes, with 8 consecutive wins, Dariush shouldn't even be fighting Do Bronx. He should already have a shot at the title. It's a genuine wonder how Dariush hasn't been a mainstream name in conversation already. Kind of like Beneil is a skeleton Dana White is trying to hide in UFC's closet. The Iranian can't take this fight lightly though, because this is the closest he's come to becoming a champion. After all, both are such well-rounded fighters. But this may end up becoming a grappling war with their Brazilian jiu-jitsu backgrounds. Oliveira, even coming from the Brazilian favelas himself, is known to have one of the best ground games in UFC history. He's submitted the likes of Clay Guida, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. By the way, speaking of Justin Gaethje, he thinks that Dariush might just beat Do Bronx if it comes to grappling. After all, Benny's jiu-jitsu is nothing to scoff at. In fact, he earned his black belt in just 5 years after starting in 2007, and is also a no-gi world champion in like 3 belts. With 16 total years of practice, I'm pretty sure he can give Charles a run for his money. Gaethje even says that with Dariush's skills, he won't be afraid to follow Oliveira to the ground, just like Islam did in his fight. So unless Charles has a plan to counter that, this fight might end up the way his last one did. Gaethje doubled down on his pick too, claiming that even while standing up, Beneil does a whole lot of damage. So Charles might be the first one to hit the ground, giving the Iranian the chance to gain an advantage on his own terms. After all, Dariush has dealt some devastating knockout punches in his career. In all fairness, you can't count out the Brazilian striking too. since he's claimed some memorable victims standing up as well. With how equally matched they are, there's a high chance of this fight going the full distance and becoming an all-out slugfest. At least Michael Chandler believes so. And if there's someone who is truly experienced in slugfests, it's him. The former Bellator champion gave his prediction, believing that this fight might become about who can claim a knockout first. Even though Oliveira's punches have knocked Chandler out before, he thinks it's a hard decision between the two. But still, Benny might be the one to get his hand raised in the end. That's an insane statement coming from Michael, since he knows the power in Oliveira's hand. Yet he still thinks Dariush can't be stopped. Man, it feels like everyone is just jumping on the Beneil hype train, and it's honestly hard not to after watching him rise through the division over the years. He's kind of become an underdog. He also has some serious knockouts in his highlight reel too. Most memorably, he knocked out Drakkar Klose with an overhand left, and gained a reaction from the commentary table that spawned millions of memes. I haven't seen Joe Rogan scream like that in a while now. Even Bilal Muhammad, who's pretty well known to be a decision fighter, thinks that if it boils down to a slugfest, stylistically, Beneil should have the advantage. It's a hard pill to swallow, because even though Beneil is great, I think sometimes people forget that Oliveira is a former champion. He knocked out Chandler and Jared Gordon, and whoever saw the Tony Ferguson fight can tell you he definitely has the stamina to keep the pressure up till the end. I mean, even the two fighters themselves are adding to the hype with their determined trash talk at this point. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, it's pretty rare for Dariush to talk trash. And that's partly the reason why it took him so long to rise up the ranks. 'Cause it's hard to cut a promo with someone refusing to verbally assault his opponent these days. It seems like Dariush has had enough though, because after Charles delayed the fight till UFC 298, Benny revealed that this is the third time Oliveira has avoided a fight with him now. Whoa. It seems like Dariush has a habit of racking up large numbers. He went on to say that he's seen how Oliveira was behaving, claiming that he's unfocused and doesn't have the motivation anymore to prepare for a fight. He even said that it might have caused the injury that delayed the match, because Oliveira might have tried to rush his camp to make up for lost time, resulting in his unfortunate injury. Charles, however, seemed determined to prove otherwise. Dubronx said that this time his mentality is to get into the octagon to hunt. And whether it's a stand-up fight or it goes to the ground, he isn't going to give up. The Brazilian fighter even talked straight to the fans, claiming that if they want to see a boring fight, then don't come to this one. Hey, with everything that's at stake, this can't possibly be anything but an exciting match. I mean, there's more than what meets the eye here. If Dariush wins this, the UFC can't possibly delay him any further from a title shot. And even though Dariush is ranked number 4 in the lightweight division right now, somehow he still isn't a household name. So, after getting this chance at being the champion, Beneil will finally get his well-deserved time in the limelight. Let's not forget that this man will have to put everything on the line for it too, because currently, he has one of the longest active win streaks without a title, and facing someone as dangerous as Charles definitely puts that in jeopardy. Speaking of Charles, as dominating of a fighter as he is, he can't possibly be comfortable losing the way he did to Islam. There's a whole lot of obvious pressure since most of the UFC pros are currently betting against him. He really has a lot to prove if he wants to become champion again. With his recent injury and delaying of the fight, it's become pretty evident that he's taking this fight seriously. The guy's even taking striking classes at the revered gym Chute de Boxe Diego Lima to go toe-to-toe against Dariush. If he pulls this off, then he'll be putting an end to Beneil's relentless streak. But if he doesn't, then he'll have to work his way up the brutal lightweight division once more. With everything on the line in this neck-and-neck, high-intensity fight, I can't seem to get enough of it. So, from everything that's at stake for both fighters at UFC 289 to Charles Oliveira's comeback after his championship loss, these were Pro Fighters' predictions for Charles Oliveira versus Beneil Dariush and who will come out victorious.